And
Okay.
still live on xirtus, Crypto Alchemist, and now also on my BurnEye. I believe.
I have a question too. Once we get back about the response to the balloon and the military, like, have they given a reason to why they haven't shot it down?
They have shot it down now.
Oh,
They
okay.
claimed they didn't want to hurt anybody or
Okay, I
risk
figured they'd
anybody's
have.
safety over the land, but the
Because
areas
that
it
could
crossed
fall.
was pretty ridiculous.
This is a pretty fun thing. The chilling Soviet maps of San Francisco, likely for communist takeover. They mapped all of San Francisco, all of the secret, all the factories, all the open and secret places, military bases, military intelligence, corporate contracted data centers, sheriffs, the IBM infrastructure for AT&T, whatever, all of it. And they had planned to, if they needed to, know exactly where everything is. Even then, China has even better maps than this because they have maps of all of the Wi-Fi addresses and everybody who has a Huawei device in their house, right?
Okay, so if this was
they shot down the
2017
balloon and they found the boy and a boy inside of it.
What?
No, I'm just kidding. This is the balloon boy. The balloon boy.
That'd be such a 1982 kind of movie. I want to see that movie though. We found the boy.
I say I'm having the boys so I can ship
The boy
them
and his
across
balloon
seas and see what
instead
happens.
of the boy and his bubble.
and his balloon.
Is a Chinese spy balloon.
Starring John Travolta's wait.
This November.
I couldn't help myself.
That's hilarious. You got me. I was like,
that was Bernie and the balloon.
Feasible.
Word. So, but okay, nuclear assault batteries, you shake them and then it causes a chemical reaction, which releases everything out, right? So that's the idea, that if it shakes everything up, then it produces energy and that should last for like 1,000 years. And you shake it again and you get another 1,000 years. And you could do this probably for tens of thousands of years with the AA battery because it has just a little bit of molten salt that was used in a nuclear reactor, right? And it should work, actually. I mean, as far as I can tell, this is enough to actually hold electricity and to cause new electricity. Hey, Julie's back.
What kind of clearance would you have to build?
Welcome back, Julie.
That's a good question. I mean, because you'd have to get access to like molten salt, a toxic waste. So if you know a guy in Norway, right? Where are they doing the nuclear waste storage? Is it Norway or Finland?
I know a guy in Iceland.
There's places in the Netherlands. They have it too. They have one in the United States too. A lot of
but they're building one. Scandinavia. Where is it? Finland. I knew it was gonna be Finland.
Holy crap.
So Finland built this thing. I want to get the pictures because the pictures will really just blow your mind.
Deep.
They built these giant places all underground. It's supposed to hold most of the world's nuclear waste. It's gonna be like the world's dump for nuclear waste. And
they're gonna dig up that one at the atoll there, the dome.
The world's first permanent nuclear waste repository.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
first?
So it's the tomb.
Are you kidding?
Did you ever watch that movie, The Keep? There's this like awesome gothic, like horror, late 80s Bauhaus kind of like synthesizer wave horror film. It's amazing. It's they go to this little village in like some Slavic country in World War II, the Nazis, and they're like, we're going to take your village. And then they're like, you can do what you want, but just stay out of the keep. The mountain, it's called the Keep. We don't go into the mountain. It's like, you cannot tell us what to do. We will do what we want. And then they go in anyway. It's like, you don't understand. It's like, it's not that we're keeping you out. We're keeping it in. And it's just like horrifying portal world that opens up that's in this like underground abyss that's connected through the gates of the Nether Lounge, and you get there through a hole in the mountain into like emptiness, right? But that's basically the same thing. Building this giant infinite corridor to put nuclear waste that no human's ever supposed to go again, and there'll be a machine that lowers it like an elevator.
That sounds like the Earth's constipation point. That, like, don't go in there. You're going to release every kind of evil that's coming out that we've stored for years.
Sounds like
the Balrog.
Yeah,
at the base of Mordor. I mean,
nuclear.
Dude, who is approving all of this? Why are people not able to say anything about it?
And how close is it to the particle accelerator that is in Chicago, like CERN?
Dude, 85,000 metric tons of nuclear fuel has been produced by the U.S. alone since the 1950s.
Mhm.
We have about 80 sites. You know, the amount of money that they're going to make being able to store this stuff. I mean, Finland's looking at making a lot more money than Norway's making off oil.
I'm just going to make a prediction. In 100 years, Finland's going to be lit up like a light bulb, and that's where all of our energy is coming from.
That's the thing, I imagine. So, wow, look at this. This is crazy. So they build this crazy. Look at this. If you had a demon and you had to trap it, this is probably how you would do it. You'd put it into this crazy Minecraft level, and you just, holy cow. And then machines would bring it. Oh, man. Yeah. And then salt reactors will just store it
Also,
forever.
Bernie, you mean Fermi Labs, the one outside of Chicago?
Oh, wow.
We have a super chat.
Dude, Stefan.
Some
me throw
baseball
Stefan
cards
in
have
here.
small squares of authentic game-used uniforms. I have an Alien and Ginter baseball card with a small piece of the multi-layer foil from Balloon Boy.
Okay.
Alien Gonzalez? Did I read that right?
Yeah, you read that right. Alien
that down.
Gonzalez.
Elian Gonzalez.
Alien Gonzalez sounds like a little bit.
Also,
I think it's just a different pronunciation.
we don't have the thing Andreas was saying about the first nuclear storage waste site, because there's New Mexico has also, like, I'm just wondering what they're identifying as the first site where they're storing it, because we've been storing nuclear waste since the beginning of nuclear energy, right? So there's the waste isolation pilot plant, the WIP, in New Mexico too, which is interesting, but it's like we're just storing it all over the place. And I think we could have ancient technology that's also been
the neutralization of all of this nuclear waste is super easy. I think that they're lying to us.
Well, and you can reuse it. You can also bomb certain places and speed up decay or change the element itself and then use it again. I was looking into that, using different types of bombs in places where they found uranium deposits to make it more pure it's an interesting science, but that's like your Army Corps of Engineers that get to do that, and nobody else really gets to learn about the mechanism, I don't think. But it is fascinating, and I think you're onto something with that, because they're refining it and reusing it.
Just the simple neutralization is really easy.
Can you go into that a little bit more of what you're saying, because this might be linked to?
So the radiation point of nuclear waste, you can neutralize it just by diluting everything that's in it, and to be able to spread it out to where it's not even like to the high levels of radiation for cancer production or anything else. So you can use it to help compost. You can use it to help do many different things, because it is energy. It's energy being released, and any kind of energy, whenever you break it down, you can subsection it into different categories. And if
you're using different solvents to mix.
I freaked out my brother earlier when I explained to him that energy drink comes from radium water.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like this radium water. Okay, let's take iodine, for example. You can take iodine pills and you drop them into a 5 milliliter bottle of water. It's only going to release so much, right? So if you take that, and, people will drink.
Oh, they took him out. They were like, that's the limit. That was the limit. They shut you down. They're like,
keep going.
Oh, you're muted.
You're
muted. You lost your audio somehow, Matt.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't drink radium water. They stopped the radium water. Get another energy drink that gives you wings.
Yes, definitely don't. Not recommended drinking anything that glows in the dark or that is radioactive. Just saying.
Testing 1, 2.
Yeah,
listen to
got you back
at low volumes.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Diluting nuclear waste with different mechanisms is where we were at, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
So
electrolyte.
if you, let's take energy for example. You have a storm rolling in that has positively charged ions in the air that causes a lot of atmospheric excitement. You can change those positively charged ions into negative and you can fight against it. So the same thing is happening within nuclear waste. You can spread this out over a period of like acidic soil, and you can put this on it and it's going to change it to like a more neutral pH balance.
Can you also repurify then by adding different things? If you've already had expunged waste, like, can you make uranium more pure by doing something to it after it's been used? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, you have magnetism also. Electromagnetism can pull.
Yeah, I'm not really too sure on that. Andreas would be more familiar.
I mean, part of the thing is like you can either consume the energy or you can move the energy, right? You can either like find sort the energy, consume the energy, move the energy. So certain things like mushrooms or livestock, the Codex Alimentarius talks about putting nuclear waste into human food product and livestock product because you can naturally digest and process nuclear radioactive waste. And so cattle can do that. If you look at I wish Lance was here, the Chinese maps of agriculture, I don't think I can find this just like that quickly. But if you do look at this map, and I wish I could get the subtlety of this map plus Chinese map of nuclear waste or nuclear production, you'll find that these places are congruent with each other. So they put the rice that they're selling to you in America and the rice from Bolivia and things like that. A lot of that rice is organic, but it's grown in nuclear waste zones where it's being used to process the nuclear waste naturally.
Yeah, and that's how they're helping to compost the soil. They're creating soil out of nuclear waste because energy cannot be created nor destroyed, and you use that energy to be able to take something that's desolate and that's in the doldrums and put energy into it, and it becomes liveliness for other things. Now, I don't know if that transfers into organic, like food
you get
growth.
like super tomatoes and like giant avocados and stuff when you're growing it.
Not necessarily, but there is. Well, so one of the things that they do, for instance, is bananas, mutations, radiation. They're doing so in order to rapidly produce new bananas that can be resistant to fungus. What they do is they use radiation to rapidly mutate the banana sequences in order to evolve bananas in a way that would take usually tens of thousands of years for nature to do, theoretically, whatever we understand that to be. But that's also probably what happens every time a volcano goes off in Polynesia, is that it causes bananas in that area to change a lot rapidly. So if you look at bananas in general, and we've done this before, varieties, there are bananas that are just friggin' amazing, pink, blue, purple, whatever. Some of them look like flowers or watermelons because of radiation. It doesn't mean they're going to necessarily become bigger, but it will change something. So like, let's say radiated silkworm. I don't know if I can find this.
Use coils though to increase the growth of a banana, like how Jeremiah is using coils to regenerate life from dead stuff.
I just wanted to show like, so this is a silkworm. And so silkworms are kinds of moths. And so if you start finding, I've seen radiated silkworms that are huge, like let's see if I can find giant. And so literally as big as a bat. I've seen, and usually they're supposed to be the size of a fingertip. But because of radiation, you can see some of these things have grown super large.
Why are they called silkworms and not silk moths then? Or what?
Well,
do they change names?
Because metamorphosis, you know.
I know, but when they metamorphosize,
it's really called
a
bomb. It's really called a Bombyx mori. A Bombyx mori is the name of the animal, and it goes through metamorphosis when it becomes the moth. But we think of it as a silkworm because for thousands of years we've been using it to make silk as a worm, and we don't really care about it as a moth. And moths eat our clothes; they don't make our silks, you know.
That's the
I love the
scariest
Bombyx Mori.
moth
The
I've
Bombyx
ever
Mori is my
seen.
spirit animal, probably one of my spirit animals.
I need to get that helmet for like Halloween next year. I'm gonna be a
Yeah,
Bombyx Mori. Oh, that
actually
was
used to
cute.
think
That was
I was
adorable.
used to think like if I were to
Oh,
become like a superhero, because of course that's
yeah.
the kind of thought I'm thinking about. But if you were like a Power Ranger or Batman or something like that, right? I would be Bombyx Mori. Come on, because you could
Yeah.
get like the Power Ranger helmet and
Wow.
it'd be sweet.
That's
Silk.
gnarly. Wow.
Anyway, radiation can make that happen. Let's see, radiated worm or caterpillar. Let me see if I can find it.
No.
Giant.
I think we.
And Galen Windsor said he swam in nuclear waste, in a nuclear waste pool.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of these things that used to be giant, also like some kind of DNA releasing their giant DNA again, that would be that does happen to some extent, but we haven't seen anything like the Godzilla movies yet, really.
Jeremiah's gonna do it with coils, I bet. Just don't let him get any animals on those coils if he's like regenerating life.
Right now
I
he's
wish
doing
I was here
basil.
to ask him. I know I want to ask him, like, have you put an insect on there? Have you made
There is a lot of thoughts that like, so where this does happen, of course, is underwater.
Mothra.
When you get down to Mothra for sure. But when you get down to the sea, there's nothing stopping things from growing different sizes. There's no bone structure in a lot of these things, like the squid, similarly. And there's radiation and heat coming out of these volcanic submarine openings. So things that just never leave these zones become super huge, right? Because they're super fauna and they never leave, right? Things just fall to them at this level. And so they just stay there.
Yeah.
So I did a study. I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, and it was an old wives' tale. Like, if you look at the worms that come out, it'll tell you if you're going to have like 6 months or 6 weeks of winter, or 6 weeks of I forget what they call it in summer. I was just trying to find it, but it's the color of the worm. It's like black, brown, black, or all black. That would tell you that.
So I did a study about groundhogs.
Well, not your guys' groundhog, because he just passed away right before he was getting ready to perform his duty.
Dude, it was like Elvis.
Mm.
Yeah.
But got too proud.
Yeah, it was kind of like the groundhogs of the Appalachian Mountains, but I think it's through radiant energy, because they could tell the energy that's coming about, so that they had to have black to be able to keep more heat in, because black's attracting all the different colors and all the frequencies of the sun versus the black.
Dude, groundhogs are terrifying. Imagine like the ancient giant groundhogs. Basically just a sloth, man. Horrible.
Yeah, it is.
Man. Where's this, like next to a person? God, I don't want to deal with that. Can you imagine? It's the worst thing.
I used to have a pet.
But they're basically marsupials. I mean, okay, if it's small, it's fine. I can deal with that.
Yeah,
a small groundhog.
You had to get it when it was a baby and it had its eyes closed still, so that when you're the first thing it saw.
How big do daughters ever get?
I feel like when they went to the deepest depths of the Mariana Trench, they saw something, because there's an image of when they got there, or otherwise there's like things cracking. But I'll try and send it. It's pretty horrifying. So I know you're just talking about that, but in extreme elements, you get extreme creatures, it seems.
Well, touching back on the radiant energy thing, this is what I believe in, like the waveform of gravitational pull that had the Nobel Prize presented in 2017, 2018. That if you look up the coral reefs all around the world, they only release sperm one night out of the year, and it's not the same night every year. It could be 2 weeks off or a month off or anything else, but all like they speak to one another, just like a garden does. Just like a plant that's growing too large and another one needs nutrients, it'll supply nutrients to that plant to grow higher. So this is radiant energy through the earth, and this is what helped me work upon, like the wireless electricity theory of Nikola Tesla and Dr. Parkenstein. He beat me to it, but it's still the same theory. It's all radiant energy.
Right, and that's what it is collecting the different radiant energies, because we're literally immersed in a sea of different universal radiant energies, and therefore this free energy isn't energy out of nowhere. It's not breaking any of the thermal laws of thermodynamics. It's just being more productive with what is in there, like what's around, and more efficient with our current devices and using the energy that is everywhere.
Yeah, and if you look up the first law of thermodynamics, it says that you're not going to get more energy output of what more energy that you put in. As much energy as you put in is what you're going to get on out. So it is radiant energy. Energy is not created nor destroyed within our own atmosphere. And this is why we can collect all of this energy that's around us, but we're subjected through different rules and regulations that we're not allowed to do it. Okay, so the work put in is the exchange of heat and friction and everything else, and that's the only output of energy you're going to get. So however much energy you expend putting in is what your result's going to be. So this goes back to perpetual motion, but what's that?
I'm just saying that's like kind of true with everything. Continue.
So the perpetual motion machine, this is actually, and you know, I know that there's a way to make a mechanical physics will to be able to do perpetual motion, because we do have gravitational pull. Just like if you take PoE coils and you wind them counteractive with one another to where you put them on top of each other, but you bury them up underneath the ground to where gravitational pull is pulling more energy in that toroidal field, that you can have it keep on going, just like what Rodin was trying to do, but he never perfected it. So if he would have used gold, is my theory, because gold on the Gauss like magnetic meter is like 80 microtesla or something above ground, but it drops down to exactly half below soil. So soil's the energy, and then we have the gravitational pull that's affecting it as well.
Brittany, what's this? You pulled this up.
That's the deep dive. They look a little horrified. Sorry. That's what I was bringing up earlier. This is Jacques Piccard, the son of the man that went the highest in atmosphere, designed this. And when they got there, I think it was because they said the glass was cracking, but it seems like they had maybe seen some type of crazy, like the abyss. Hence the movie
Cthulhu.
is about this experience, I think. It's just my speculation. And then no one went that deep until James Cameron, which is also interesting.
Did you see James Cameron's acid trip yet? Did you guys all watch that?
Yeah, it was nuts.
He did this video in the 80s, I guess, where he talked about taking acid, and
several times. He talked
with his
about
wife
5
and stuff.
different experiences.
One time, he's like, "Man, I really shouldn't have thrown water into the fire with my face right above it." Is kind of a thing, but
there was bullets in the fire from it was a nuts story. I randomly watched that like 2 days ago, and I think I shared that in your Discord too. I hadn't seen it.
Interesting.
The wife that made the Hurt Locker, that won the Oscar for the Hurt Locker?
Probably. I don't know.
James Cameron or what?
James Cameron.
He got to take the Challenger. He got to like make his own.
He married 5 times, so I'm not sure which wife is the one.
He got to go to the Mariana Trench too, I thought, didn't he?
Probably the one that was in Terminator. I don't know.
Linda Hamilton. Isn't there?
Is that the same guy? The guy with the beard and the guy shaving?
Yeah.
James Cameron, man.
James Cameron, young
James Cameron. He's the Avatar guy.
James Cameron with Botox and with stem cell research.
Did he do Abyss too? Right?
Yeah.
Or
Did he do Abyss?
I don't know. He should have, because he got to do it. He's like that guy. Who is it? Who
made Abyss?
Who directed Abyss? Can't be James Cameron. That's like too old, isn't it?
James Cameron. Yeah. James Cameron.
No.
James Cameron.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like
no,
this.
Cards. I'm done.
I mean, he wanted to be an engineer or scientist or an explorer or something like that. He had all the money and all the access to anything he wanted to do. And so that's why he's obsessed with like 3D movies and everything. He's like, I just want to have access to whatever everyone else doesn't. That's his whole That's fair. It's a fair goal.
But wouldn't it be like NASA or the military that should have that record after the Picard's son? Like, it just seems bizarre that James Cameron gets to be the next person that gets to go that
He has the money. He built the thing, right? He financed the whole thing. So I think that's the way that works.
Money gives you access to resources. Resources gives you access to depleting the rules.
Right? Did Stefan make it? Stefan, what's up?
He's gonna lose it.
Loading. There it is. He did it. What's up, bro?
Welcome.
Stefan.
Oh, this is a nice look. I like this. This is good. This is a good look. What's up, bro? How's it going? We're talking about field energy, free energy, stolen energy, perpetual energy, first law of thermodynamics.
I never know which one's. I never know which is
energy.
the British curse word.
It's all of them.
Oh, it's forwards versus backwards. That's a good random thing to bring up. Peace sign backwards Britain. You guys know this, right? In America, they told you not to put your fingers either direction because this is the FU. And I don't know how true this is, but I love the story anyway, that it's about your bow fingers, because they were saying, hey, look, Gales or Janissaries, we still have our bow fingers. So you didn't cut them off yet, because they used to cut off the fingers of the archers.
So it was threatening.
Might not be true, but that's a story.
Open is
It's
okay.
like taunting. It's like, hey, I still got him. You know?
That's your bow.
But that's why they told American soldiers be careful with the victory symbol, because the victory symbol comes off as kind of like, that's a Cockney slur.
Really?
That is, yeah, that's.
I always
FU.
do peace this way. This
No,
is the
if you
bad
put
way.
if you put it that way, like
that's
you're doing,
FU.
don't do that. That's
Yeah, no, I
terrible.
don't.
Well, it also means victory. That's what I heard. Winston Churchill era. It was like, haha, we won.
Yeah, because we still have our bow fingers. I mean, even if it wasn't true originally, I'm sure that's what Winston Churchill believed about it.
Okay, but
They
back in
lose
that
their
day,
bow
didn't
fingers
they do a
often?
documentary saying that they used the other hand to shoot with on a bow because it was faster to reload?
Yeah, that's what I mean. There's probably no truth to the bow finger story. I think
Yeah,
there's
you
a
wouldn't
wiki
lose your fingers.
thing that says no. They used to. That's the story though. Is cut off your bow fingers.
So you
However,
couldn't shoot? Okay.
yeah, who knows if it's true?
Now,
Sounds like it might
usually
not be.
when you're stringing an arrow on a bow, the arrow, I think, well, whichever side it's normally on, there's a guy who's figured out, I guess he taught himself how to shoot a bow and arrow when he was a kid, and he put the arrow kind of on the quote unquote wrong side, but now he has the world record, according to Guinness, for all these kind of stunts for shooting two arrows in the air with the most
doing it
accuracy.
wrong
You
was
can
the
bend
right
them
thing to
around
do.
corners, you
Robin
can skip
Hood.
it off the ground and hit things.
Yeah, so instead of the left side of the bow to where he would line up, he would throw it up on the right side because it was quicker to reload.
It's like Jimi Hendrix and the guitar,
Yeah, he would hold 4 arrows in a single hand and just fire them off.
That's some Robin Hood type of shit there.
Man,
I knew a guy
here's
named
that.
Robin Hood, actually.
Is that related to the legend of Robin Hood? Because didn't he shoot a bunch of arrows?
Well, this guy was just recent. Like, it was like within the last 10 years that like he become prominent on YouTube, was showing all of his videos.
He was on Jimmy Kimmel, maybe.
Shots. It could have been 20 years. Maybe I'm old.
What do you think though about? So we were talking earlier about the electrostatic tether and this idea that we could get free energy just by harnessing it, but that it's so much energy that it's like too much energy. I mean, the ramifications of that much energy that's not supposed to go into a specific singular location. What kind of, maybe that changes the weather patterns. Maybe that is the kind of thing that causes drift of the magnetic current or moves, flips the poles slowly or quickly.
If you look at the pyramids and you look at what they were lined with, it was limestone, and limestone is conductive through electricity. And also it had a gold capstone on top, and it had gold running down all the sides of it. So this is the reason I believe that pyramids were the perfect conductor of electricity to pull it from the ionosphere, and it was running down. And you look at every section that's inside the pyramid, it has different resonant frequencies. So I believe that the Egyptians knew what electricity was, and they could categorize it between A, B, C, and D. Just like oak trees, they have, we have water oak, maple, or not maple, whatever. There's different sectors of the same oak trees. And this is the energy grid, the ley lines up on the earth, right? Where all the pyramids are created. So I believe that all the pyramids created the ley lines, and it wasn't something that was already created.
To me, it makes more sense that there was a giant flock of dinosaurs that were flying around the earth and put the pyramid there as their nest site. And because it's geometric, we think we did it. And we might have put layers on top of it. My understanding also is that the layers of the pyramid, when you measure the vertical height of the block courses, there's a progressive sequence that has to either do with prime numbers or with the Fibonacci sequence that is in tune with static electricity discharge. So if the idea that cats were worshipped in ancient Egypt as well, bugs are attracted to light and flashing things, and so they would have been
trust these things that naturally make it work. They're doing it, so you can do it if they can do it.
Yeah, so all of these nests and everything, they have the Fibonacci sequence built into it. But if you look back, and I keep on bringing this up about the APEC and the guy, David, that works for the DOD, he was talking about creating an anti-gravity device that he didn't call anti-gravity, but someone else did. And this is what I want to work with Jeremiah on, because it bounced off all corners and it would shoot straight up. So, Andreas, I think you were telling me about this. The guy who had so much money that he created Giza in his backyard or something that drew water out of the ground. And this is the same.
Like Kid Rock, he built his own version of the Capitol.
Yep, that it flooded like the basement or something.
Yeah,
it wasn't Kid Rock.
But the locations that they choose, though, I think it is interesting that there are locations that animals frequent naturally show up at. We're just another animal. We show up at the same watering hole as everybody else, and then eventually decide to build our house there. You know.
But he's talking the technology that you showed that they used to build the pyramids that could have been done through water and routing. Is that what you're talking about? Because I know I thought way differently, and then you had done a video on floating the bricks, like whatever the
idea is that they created an enclosed tunnel, and then with the water pressure you could float blocks up the side. It's because people can't get through their head that balloons and blimps existed back then. And yes, that was with, if you could wheel in your sails and get the jib tuned in, I'm not even using the right sailing terminology, but you could use that same set of block and tackle to moderate the vertical uplift forces from the blimps, so that you could fine tune them and use them like a crane.
And even as simple as just, you've got like rocks. So the thing is, you've got a path from the Nile, and the Nile, it's interesting, I think, for the dramatic timing. Like, someone should definitely make a movie with Brad Pitt kind of a thing about it. But you take the water, the Tamanrasset's dammed up so that the water can't flow, and the water coming down from Ethiopia. So also you got to see Egypt, Ethiopia. We have 3 seasons in Ethiopia. You have 4 seasons in Ethiopia, 3 seasons in Egypt. So when the 4th season of freezing ends in the North Mountains of Ethiopia and the water starts to flood out, then you have the 3rd season that continues twice as long in Egypt, which is the flooding season.
And so there's a big dam in Ethiopia that just got built and was a huge controversy because everyone downwind or downed water of where that dam is going crops or
right, and that's exactly what happened in the Bible, right? Because in the Bible, the story goes that Joseph comes the Technicolor Dreamcoat. He ends up as a slave. He ends up in Egypt. He ends up working for the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh's the house. It's like the mafia. It's one of the rich families, and he puts them in the most power that there ever been in Egypt, because they dam the entrance to the Nile so that they can start building their new city, supposedly. And in the process, they have 7 years of plenty, and then they have 7 years of famine for everybody else that's downwind of them. And those people, then they have to buy crops from the Pharaoh in exchange for their animals, their livestock, and their land. And then they end up just using that livestock on that land that now is owned by the Pharaoh. And so they become.
Is Andreas's mic clipping only in my ears, or is that everyone else's too?
I'm sorry. It might be my fault for the mic being way far over there.
Oh no, now we're good. We're good.
That's way better.
I'll put my mic all the way off screen, but we could still hear you.
I don't know. It's terrible. I got excited, but you get my point. That there's a flood season, then there's a drought, 7 years of drought, and from that they end up taking over all of the land of Egypt and turning everyone into serfs. And so this is happening again. But in the process of doing that, they were able to divert the water for building the pyramids, probably, because you take the water, you flow it around this area, and then all of a sudden you are able to take the rocks, attach them to bamboo, and then from the bamboo, let me go back a page to show you the picture. You can have floats, right? These can be stomach linings of gut that are actually leather sacks that can hold balloons. And they're just holding it up a bit with buoyancy so they can push it around.
Where did all the megafauna go?
How many times over?
To make giant floaty water sacks, right?
These are the guts of these giant animals. Yeah.
That's
a more plausible theory than migration or breeding issues or hunting. Well, it's a form of hunting, but purpose driven.
What's the
and
name
the same
of that?
balloons? When you see whales floating in the sky in some of these ancient, or even like a kind of steampunk era type stuff, that is actually what you would use for a giant balloon in the old days. Would be a giant.
You would use
skin of a whale
stomach.
What do you call that? Like the ancient water flask that's made out of a gut. You know, I'm talking about these things.
It's called a witch's bottle, and it has crystals in it when you shake it that illuminate. Have you heard of that before?
I think that's different, but still sounds good.
It's because we can't accept that they had light bulbs back then either, and that we found them, and that they weren't built out of glass. They were built out of skin that had been shellacked to create a closed system. But separate issue. Just on the pyramids quickly too. Might have been an anecdote. I don't remember where I heard it, but a guy gets to the top of the Great Pyramid and he has a wine bottle that's empty and maybe tinfoil that he sticks in the neck of it and holds it up over his head, and sparks shoot out of it.
Yeah,
because
so that's
whatever electric system is still there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's the energy being created that I was talking about. Like, because it does bounce off the inside, and limestone is conductive, and that's what they used to have on the outside of the pyramid. So it would travel up just like a transformer does on higher gauge wire than lower gauge wire. Is going to create more current, but it's going to create more energy going upward. So I've
seen it also happen. People on a hike, if they're on a ridge or a cliff, and when they hold their hands up, even without any wine bottle or tinfoil, they've got electricity shooting out of their fingers just because of the grounding force or the something in the area.
Yeah, that would probably be because of positively charged ions, and then they're just going up to a higher altitude, and they're grounding everything out. And they are, it's organic
like a power
material.
plant.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
I also think the pyramids are just a tailings pile, and usually the tailings pile is either going to flood your neighbor with sand or something. So instead of building a giant pile of sand that would keep washing back into whatever tunnels they were digging, they found a way to make like a sandstone concrete out of it, and that was just the most efficient way to stack it. And again, it doesn't have to be a human intelligence that did it, or even even a primate. You know.
The pyramids are really weird to me because, like, they would bury the pharaoh at the very bottom, but they would always have like a 1 inch by 1 inch square hole, like a 1 inch square that was shooting straight to the North Star.
I think that's like an analog to how Jewish couples used to get together, where they would sew them both in their sleeping bags, kind of, and just cut a small hole for. Sorry.
Well, maybe there's some truth to what they talked about yesterday with the seer, or the remote viewer that was able to ascend with someone that had died and was headed towards the moon. What was that? Was that on your show, Burn? That they're talking about that? I'm trying to remember.
No.
It was remote viewing, and somebody died. Edward Casey.
Oh.
And they said there was a bunch of them remote viewing the same person, and they all had to stop because he started to go towards the moon. So maybe
that was
why there was something like North Star, or where the soul ascended to.
I remember hearing.
And that's what it was with the pharaohs, because they would release his soul and he would go up to the, to the stars, and that's the reason they drilled a hole all the way up directly to it. Not drilled a hole, but they constructed the pyramids with that in it.
I think they were saying that's what keeps you reincarnating, like when your soul goes to the moon.
They physically saw this. I don't think Julia was even. Were you there when they were talking about that? Probably not.
No.
Everyone knows the word yeet, right? Y-E-E-T kind of means to get flung. So I saw something where it's a form of quantum locking, where they took a bunch of small neodymium magnets and kind of had them hovering, and each time you added one, it would kind of snap into a different geometric configuration. And then if you added one too many, something about it. One of the other magnets, as soon as you put that other one into this floating array, the other one would just launch and just disappear off the frame of whatever. So,
whenever they drop them,
this is on a small scale, and so the implications is if you had 5 blimps hovering on some electrostatic charge and someone else came up to join the fray, who knows what forces are at work, and it could just boot someone out of whatever balanced array that they're in. Or I don't know if that made sense.
Yes. By what are you changing in the atmosphere to do that, though? You're saying they're altering
like the harp sort of stuff in the
yeah.
on a hole in the ionosphere.
Well, again, I'm not sure how it would work on a macro scale. What I saw was a tabletop experiment, and the implications of it are rather frightening, perhaps. It implies that there are forces at work and things that may be unanticipated.
Certain amount of hertz.
I mean, the bottom line is I don't look forward to the Great Reset for a couple reasons, but between the goal of releasing a bunch of these extinct megafauna, which are going to be pretty dang tall. I mean, that's a 6-foot bird, basically. So, right? Am I wrong? No, that's a 3-foot bird. Sorry, not 2 meters. But still, I mean, there's a bunch of other birds that are that tall.
Herbivores, aren't they? They're not carnivores.
No, dude, birds are psychopaths. They like to eat people. Here's what's coming, is all I'm trying to say.
The loon bird can eat 2 pounds.
Coming back.
5
The
pounds
loon
a
bird?
day or something?
You mean like the loon, like my Minnesota State bird?
The loony.
Now everyone's microphone is clipping. I wonder if it is just me.
All sorts of
the loon is terrifying, man.
No, they disappear.
Loons are peaceful.
They
make that weird noise.
They can eat like 3 times their own body weight in meat every.
There we go. He's finally here. We got him.
The loon himself.
Phase shifter. Good day. Welcome.
Hey, Jeremiah.
Coils, good sir.
Oh, Jeremiah's here.
Yay,
Rife
Jeremiah.
machine? How is your plants look? I want to see how your plants are.
Audio test is working.
Okay, good. I just will notify you that because of where I am compared to my signal quality, if I'm talking, you guys will be able to hear me. But if anybody else is talking at the same time, StreamYard will auto prioritize me as last, and it'll cut out anything. Just so you know,
the whole stream's trash in my end right now. Is that true for anyone else?
I can't have sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I can hear what you're saying, but everyone's clipping in and out.
Right. Well, the broadcast, as far as when
it sounds good to me,
it actually shows the audience something different and lets them hear something different than what the rest of us hear live. So that's one of the things that I noticed about this program is like I'll want to hear something that somebody was talking about, and it sounded perfect while I'm in the actual stream, but then I go back to do the rewatch, and they get completely cut off. So
yeah, I'm working on fixing that by both learning editing as well as now doing local recordings for everybody. The StreamYard's given this new option for audio and video local recordings, and then I get it afterwards. I don't know. It's a process. I've been trying it out. It seems to be working, and hopefully.
Okay. So as per the usual, I've got things set up. Give me just one moment.
Perfecto. Live demonstrations are always nice.
I'll just go ahead and pre-warn you guys. Jeremiah and I talked on the phone. I was very disappointed in my own coils.
Oh, who and the what now?
Yeah. I mean, well, Jeremiah knows way more than I do about electrical engineering. Very smart. And so anytime I hear something negative, I'm disappointed in it. But I'm very, I'm looking forward to what Jeremiah can continue on with to improve upon it.
Eager to learn.
Right? We're all here for learning. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I definitely will agree with that completely. This is a whole learning experience. Nobody has all the answers. We're figuring this thing out as we go. And quite frankly, I consider all the coil technology, it's a very modern iteration of a very ancient geometric technology. But by using electromagnetic fields and trying to produce some of the same results that were done by gaseous discharge, and then prior to that were actually done by large stone structures and various crystal resonators. I mean, it's just the latest iteration in a long series of geometric studies that affect the human biological system. All right. So, little radiation roadshow. I just got these gifted to me earlier today, and these are radium clock dials. And so it's too bright in the room to see them, and they don't glow as brightly as they used to. So I do have a little blacklight source, and you can see them glowing there underneath the LED provided UV. And here I'll just reflect it off the pan so you can see that light right there. That's what it looks like. But yeah, some of these are very, very highly active. Like this one here is powder from a bunch of clock hands that have just been kind of ground up, scraped off. What I was surprised by, and the reason why I needed radium, is because I've been looking into radioactive batteries as permanent or lifetime device power solutions. And right now, radioactive batteries generally use something like a tritium vial or some other gas or some other outgassing or radioactive decay isotope that produces photons as a natural result of its decay. Or perhaps they use like a scintillator crystal to produce photons. And they use little solar panels inside to pick up that tiny fraction of a percentage of the radiation output from these particles that are also pumping out alpha and beta particles. So alphas are just extremely, extremely fast electrons. They have a negative charge. The trouble is that they're going near relativistic speeds when they leave. So the fact that you have an electron flying damn near the speed of light coming out of these radioactive sources makes it very difficult to use. And so radioactive batteries of today don't use it. They just waste it. Instead, they try to produce photons with it. And then the other thing is beta particles. Beta particles are extremely fast particles that can be protons, neutrons, and these things are also traveling with such high velocity that you're going to need to slow them down, but they will have a positive charge. And so generally you're looking at a proton that either quickly decays into a neutron or simply pops out of existence and becomes energy and produces a huge burst of gammas as it does so. The point is that there are many different ways that a material can decay. It can't, depending on what kind of stress it's under. But protons and neutrons, when taken and stripped out of the atom, are not very stable. And what the old way of doing it is to capture the alpha and betas, which are alphas negative, betas positive. You would use a parallel plate grid, and you would impart an acceleration momentum to the two particles. So it would fly past these two grid plates, and you'd have the positive plate on the top here. You'd have that on the alpha side, so it's going to repel the charged particle, and you'd have the negative plate on the beta side. So what this is going to do is slow down the velocity of those two particles and also experience an electric field increase between these two plates. And then you have another set of plates down the line at the Fermi distance for where you want to collect these charged particles, and they'll actually fly apart and hit the plates, or they'll cross over and hit the plates and be absorbed. So in this way, we can actually use the real energy of a radioactive isotope, in this case radium, is what I'm planning on doing, and making sort of a, I guess you would consider it sort of like a clay or like a soft acetic gel that will allow me to bombard these with electromagnetic fields and try to increase the rate of decay cyclically in an LC oscillator, so that as these physical charged particles are being collected and added to the power of the circuit, I can also simultaneously boost the radioactive output by high frequency or ultra high frequency bombardment. So just to kind of show you what these things are doing, and by comparison, these are pieces of uranium ore, just raw uranium ore. Some of them are more colorful than others. You can see some like yellowish, greenish spots, kind of look like yellow cake. This one has a lot more of those spots on it. Never actually tried to see if these glow. Yeah, I guess, yeah, they don't really glow. Nothing like the radium, unfortunately. But this is ordinary uranium ore. And we can see on the meter here, it's fairly, mild. I wouldn't consider this dangerous. Like, I'm not worried about holding it because it's not incredibly powerful. We have a huge piece over here. And even if I stick the probe directly on that huge piece, we can watch that meter rise there. We're going to peak out at less than 0.3 or 3,000. So by comparison, here are some thorium mantles. And the thorium is mostly an alpha emitter. It also emits a decent number of betas.
Jeremiah, can I interrupt you right quick?
Yeah.
I just want to check. I can always just try hopping in and off the stream. Is the sound clipping for everybody else, or is it really just on my end? Because
I think it's just on your end. Yeah, it sounds okay to me.
Because it fixed when you pulled the mic closer when you did it. But this is the kind of thing that if I'm tuning in as an audience member and the mic's clipping like this, I don't know.
Yeah, no, we can't hear it clipping at all. I think it's only on your end.
Interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Jeremiah.
It could be in your headphones there.
Yeah, I'd rather have you interrupt an audio issue instead of letting it continue on.
Yeah. But what you were saying was interesting.
Okay.
You're playing with yellow cake, for goodness sake. Maybe that's what's doing it. Yeah.
But it's not quite to that stage. Like I said, that was natural uranium ore. You can simply chip it off pieces of rock on sites that are totally available and legal to do so, and they're not refined. They're not super strong, and I was showing them as a comparison. Now this is some thorium. These are thorium mantles as they appear. These used to go in old Coleman lamps, and if you heat these up under a flame, they get crazy bright white. And so they will be a great converter of just any kind of thermal energy into a photon source. They will very easily give up electrons. But this is basically those mantles that have been burned down under a high temperature flame. And this is a total of 4 of them in this little bag. And oh man, is it hot. So if I just set that directly on there, you can see we're already climbing past 4,000 and above. So from about this distance, it's not all too wild. And this is where it gets interesting with radium, because radium is so retardedly radioactive compared to uranium and thorium that even if I get it close like this, like I'm not even touching it, I'm damn near pegging my meter already. And all of these are basically like that. This one in the back here isn't quite as hot as the others. Now, these were clock handles, and they're the most UV responsive. They're also the ones that still glow. If the lights are off, they still have enough radiation to continuously produce photons. So they are also crazy hot. You can just see the meter being pegged up there. So that kind of gives you an idea. And here's the powder. Again, I'm still about 3 inches away, and it's pretty hot as well. So the reason why I really needed radium is because this radioactive battery patent that I was offered to me by Anthony Williams, great patent, and I have about 25 other nuclear battery patents. Well, that one specifically talks about a very simple mixture of uranium, thorium, and radium powders mixed together, basically pressed into a wafer about 5 millimeters thick, which I don't think it needs to be that thick, honestly. And then there's a layer of zinc, and then there's a layer of copper, and then it just kind of alternates between cake, zinc, copper, cake, zinc, copper to form this entire pile. And around the sides of that pile are a set of electromagnetic pulse coils to oscillate this thing using an LC oscillator. And according to the patents and the design, the stack of these materials allows the freed electrons and charged particles to have a polarization under the magnetic field, and it stimulates emission of radiation, meaning that the decay rate actually goes up cyclically per peak of current going through the coil. And that, to me, that concept was just amazing, because what that means is you have something larger than a AA battery. Sure, you have something larger than a computer chip, radioactive cell, but what you end up with is a radioactive system that doesn't produce leak radiation because it's being captured completely inside the cell. And on top of that, you have something that can power, say, 10,000 watts instead of something that can only power a fraction of a milliwatt. I mean, literally, radioactive batteries of today, they can't keep an LED lit. They don't have enough power. But using this method, they could. So we're going to find out. I've got the ingredients now.
They just can't do it, Captain. They don't have the power.
Oh,
There's no risk of saying they're not going to explode or melt down or.
I want to really quickly show this footage just for a second. So this is some footage that Dolly Moore took of, it looks like the balloon coming down. She says, okay, so here's what I just caught a few minutes ago out my window. I saw a jet go by so fast, and then the explosion in the sky. Holy. Billings, Montana, official communication. Billings, Montana stated, we've confirmed with Montana that there have been no explosions in or around Montana. But then there's this video, which is kind of looks like, the Elon Musk rocket or something going down.
Yeah, that looks more like a rocket trail than. I guess that could be very extended out.
Hey, Brittany, what was the name of the comet, that green meteor that came in the other day? Do you remember?
Those gases would have just went
green.
right into our atmosphere and not left a trail like that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
If you were going to safeguard technology about going to space, one thing you might do is give all the information about how to get up there, and then this is people trying to get down. Oops.
So that's supposed to be a balloon, hey?
Yeah.
No, that's
That
not.
looks like a rocket trail for
Yeah, I'll believe it if it's on fire. I mean, if the official story is the thing was, shot down with some like a military laser and it was on fire as it was falling, then maybe that makes sense. But otherwise, like,
I thought helium and hydrogen.
So definitely not Joe Rogan. Just asked the question if radio is radioactive.
That much flammable material on board.
It's a chemtrail.
Oh,
What you're looking at is a mirage, I guess. So
Jeremiah, do you want to comment on that? There was a question from the audience about aren't radio waves radioactive? And like even visible light as a form of radiation is radiation, right?
Okay, yeah, visible light, the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum, from the longest wavelengths naturally occurring telluric signals all the way up to the extremely short gamma ray bursts and those above those frequencies are all part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and they are all forms of radiation. The differentiating thing when something is radioactive versus when it's simply electromagnetic radiation is when the material on its own produces electromagnetic radiation simply as a result of its process of decay. That's what makes something radioactive.
Infrared is also. I mean, are we decaying if we're emitting infrared light? I don't know.
So is that only organic? Okay, time out now. This is linked to like organic chemistry as well with decay. So there's certain things that don't have any type of radioactive decay.
Yeah, I mean everything has technically some radioactive decay. It's just that a lot of materials they're fairly stable, so they have decay half-lives that are like as long as the span of the known universe, so far as we can tell. And so technically they are always at risk of decaying, and you might at any point just have a random proton pop out or a random neutron pop out, and you could get an isotope or a decay product or a transmutation of the element. But the chances of it happening are so incredibly slim, and the half-lives are so long because they are so stable that we don't consider them to be radioactive. To say the least, they're beyond our methods.
Jeremiah, you actually have a full table of radioactive material. I'm going to send you a Faraday apron.
A Faraday apron? I have a Faraday apron. That won't save you from gamma radiation, not one bit. In fact, it won't save you from gamma, beta, or alpha.
Best I got.
Oh, yeah, no worries, man. I'm building a bismuth case for this stuff.
Okay.
Well, maybe you should postpone until you have it.
Just hurry up and have some kids, and then you can do it.
Or have like gloves on, maybe. I don't know.
People are afraid of radiation, and they don't need to be afraid of radiation. They just need to understand what the dangers are. They think if you're irradiated that you somehow are now walking around radioactive. No, you've actually got to get that stuff into your bloodstream. You've got to get it into your skin. So you notice everything I have up there.
You do not have to get that stuff in. Guys, do not get that stuff into your skin. No, you don't have to.
No, that's to affect you.
In order to be dosed with a lethal amount of radioactive material, it's got to be on or in your body, is basically what I'm saying. And so you've noticed that everything on the bench, it's either in a bag or in foil or in a container or something else that allows it to be handled so that the only thing coming off of it is the alpha, beta, and gamma radiation with absolutely none of the physical material possibly entering my skin. So that means when I walk away from that table, I'm not taking it with me.
Having said that, don't anybody try this at home. Don't anybody.
Are all those baggies sealed? Is it getting into your lungs?
Yeah, they're actually vacuum sealed. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I've sealed.
See, there is that.
I'll actually be redoing that again because I want to standardize the size of the packets so that I can tell exactly how hot they are per square centimeter. And so I'll probably be resizing them into 2x2 centimeter packages for a 4 square centimeter exposure area window.
Wow.
It just gives me some standardization so I can tell which is what and exactly how much radioactive energy is being emitted from it.
And you're recreating these batteries. How long do you think they're going to last?
My guess would be somewhere around 350 years.
What? Can I buy one? Can you put me on the list?
I'm sure that I am not allowed to sell them.
Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's rescind that last comment. But
We
I
can
would
go
like
find some in nature and collect samples.
I will find some in nature.
Yes,
And
I can't sell the batteries, but I will tell everybody exactly how they're being built. Because all the materials that you see on that bench are totally legal for me to own with absolutely no license and without regulation, so long as I control them, do not sell them, and do not refine.
How could you sell them? Never ever. You can't there's already patents for it, or if you're
No,
changing
no,
it up
I mean,
a little bit, can't you make the Jeremiah battery?
There are patents for probably just about any variation of a radioactive battery, but the problem is that when you produce a radioactive battery, that automatically gets screened by the military industrial complex for its use in their applications. And the reason why we don't have high-powered
national security
radioactive batteries today in the civilian world, and why every time somebody like Elon Musk talks about the idea of a different type of direct conversion radioactive battery, it's huge news, even though these things are in deployment in satellites, in military vehicles, in critical systems, all over the military industrial world.
Yeah.
So is the second that I try to patent something like that, I automatically will get pulled into that analysis. Told, we're buying this, here's the money, shut the hell up. And if you don't, you'll end up in Guantanamo. So that's it. By just simply telling people what I'm doing, which is entirely legal to do. If they do it themselves, then it's also legal for them. Just don't sell it and don't try to patent it.
And we do not recommend playing with radioactive materials at home or pretty much ever.
It's not the same as saying get your own chickens and eat your own eggs. It's way different than that. Way.
Well, I don't know about how much bad information is out there regarding the handling of radioactive materials and the safe usage and demonstration, but you have to keep in mind that professors in universities across the world every year will handle these elements many times per year throughout the course of their lives and be just fine during the course of demonstration to their classes. And that's basically what I just did today, is none of these things are so incredibly dangerous that I have to worry about it. It's not something that I'd want to put on a pendant. That'd be insane. It's not a piece that I'd want to sleep next to, but there's something that I can have completely across the room for me. And if I take my Geiger over here, it's got one of the most sensitive windows I can buy. I mean, it's ticking basically as much with the radiation it's receiving from that as it is from cosmic background and gamma ray bursts and stuff. So when you're 10 feet away from it, you really don't even have to worry about it existing.
Dude, what about the red mercury? Stefan, are you still here? And Jeremiah, what do you think about red mercury? And also Rife. Anybody? Red mercury?
Well, the new red mercury, because again, we can rehash the same old faux propaganda since 1970s and fill in the audience that probably has already watched every bad documentary about red mercury that's out there. Yeah, I don't know if it's true, but the new one is the Congo rocks. And I'd love, we can talk about red mercury too, but I'd love to get Jeremiah's input on what he thinks about.
Yes.
Because speaking of getting things on your hand, these guys look like they've been drawing with graphite all day, so to speak, and their hands are metallic almost. And then they're holding two rocks together that are just sparking.
Jeremiah, have you seen this new material out of Africa?
False claims. Go back to sleep.
They just put 2 wires up, lights up the LED like nothing. Supposedly, this electric material.
You know, that sounds an awful lot like Thomas Townsend Brown's gravitational isotopes, which are apparently also permanently charged electrical materials. He made a version of a brick that could, when it was being shorted, it would produce its own heat. So in winter, you just short the bricks out, and when they weren't being shorted, they would produce enough power to run your stuff. And you'd best build your house with these things, was his idea. And they used these materials called gravitational isotopes, which were just either powders of rocks or solid rocks that would just generate voltages. Hutchinson kind of came across this too. This part of his original and early days of crystal power cells is he would just take one of these big rocks and jam electrodes against it.
There we go. That's what I think.
This might be a dumb question.
Yeah, we'll have to bring this up with John and Nancy next weekend in our next 3rd episode with them on the crystal batteries. Exactly this topic. that we are discussing?
Yeah, Samuel Cohen said that red mercury is manufactured by mixing special nuclear materials in very small amounts into the ordinary compound and then inserting mixture into a nuclear reactor or bombarding it with a particle accelerator beam.
That actually, like, theoretically, it sounds practical. Jeremiah, you said you don't personally believe that one compound of it is accurate. It's like we've discussed it before. It's
the mystical SP206 or whatever formula.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is I don't know about whether or not that formulation is even capable of existing or could be chemically synthesized. But what I can tell you is that the videos of somebody showing a little vial of red mercury and then you see their hand in what looks like a mirror, and it's not visible, and there's two plates and they pour it on one of the plates and you can't see the reflection in what looks like a mirror. Anyways, if you watch those videos really closely and you slice them up frame by frame, it's actually not a mirror. It's a little wall cut out with a clear see-through, just nothing in it, no glass or anything. Sometimes they'll put glass just to get the reflections. But anyways, he's got his hand on the right side and the left side, so you can actually see.
Explain that again. You're saying that he claimed that because he dipped his hand in mercury, you could see through it. Like
red mercury that. Sorry, Andreas, can you scroll down just a little bit on this and vibranium?
Word. I was going to just show vibranium. Okay, so I was just thinking about a couple things here. So let's go back for a second. First off, Black Panther has this magical rock called vibranium or vibranium. It's like vibration.
Okay,
rock.
yeah,
magical rocks in Black Panther.
That's fictional. That's from the movie.
I mean, it's in a comic book. That doesn't necessarily mean it's fictional.
Based
it's smart metal from an asteroid.
If you think about what's it called? Tantalum is made of coltan, and coltan is found in the Congo, and so 80% of the world's coltan is mined in the Congo. You have it in your laptop, you have it in your cell phone. It makes your technology you breathe. 1 kilo of coltan is worth $400. The people mining them make less than $10 a week. It's used to make tantalum, a heat resistant powder that can hold high electric charge, vital component in modern capacitors. So this is called coltan.
Is there anything to back that up? Like proof of
which part? Well, you can look up coltan. I mean, you can see if you want to see coltan mining. I mean, I've definitely seen shows about people mining coltan.
It's probably found near and in volcanoes if it was used for power, for sure.
Okay.
That's really interesting. First time I heard the name coltan.
Yeah, me too. It's Joe
Rogan did just do an episode where he brought on someone who talked for 2 hours about this type of mining.
Yeah, I mean, there's copper mining, coltan mining, cobalt mining, all these different things that they're using for.
Definitely related to volcanism as well. If you look into coltan volcanoes and images, they're coming from all different types of volcanism too. It looks like, I don't know, interesting. And probably from asteroids there could have been launch technology as well using it.
So there was the one video of this new rock that was dug up in Africa, though, that straight up they put 2 wires to it and it was lighting up lights and stuff.
Right. And so the Associated Press, what was it called? What was the Congo stone called? Congo rock. The Associated Press. God, that bird freaks me out. Right, the number 3 is the one that really I don't want to deal with.
God.
But they were saying it looked like it was probably pyrite or something. But I think
pyrite-ish.
Well, that's what they're claiming, is that it was fake and it was really just pyrite. But if it was actually something else, coltan isn't too far off looking from that, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it was something. But then they're saying you couldn't have electricity stored in it already.
Growth. No, not that one. I'm sorry.
Which one? This guy here?
No, yeah, that one. Just without the colorization.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
So this is the alleged video of it. Yeah, easily could be faked, right? It could have a battery in between the rock and his thumb or another wire.
There's a little light.
Right, but it's is this a legit discovery? Is this stuff real? very, very fascinating.
I mean, if you go back, it looks like he has another rock in his other hand.
Right.
Too. So
yeah,
it could
like,
just be making
easily could be a prank, but would like to hear more about this.
Can I ask Jeremiah too? And it might be related or totally non-related. But
yeah, so like, was it exposed as a fraud, like not legit, or?
Yeah, he's holding something else.
And if Jeremiah is there, I want to ask you.
Here, go ahead.
About virgin magnets and how they impact the life, if they impact lifetime of battery, or if they're involved, and how that, if it's an untouched magnet versus can you recharge a magnet to its full capacity as a virgin magnet? I just kind of wanted you to explain.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So
sorry,
a virgin magnet just is going to refer to a magnet coming straight from the factory. And by the time it gets to you, it's already been touched probably, 40, 50 times after.
So
it's
no longer a virgin magnet.
Well, there never has been such a thing as a virgin magnet, because in order for one to, you would have to have an entirely machine automated process in which nobody ever materials.
There is the phrase, the idea of never sullying
natural nuclear reactors are virgin magnets. Okay, thank you, Jeremiah.
Okay, so there's a different. Hold on, then that means there's a different definition of virgin magnet that I'm not familiar with, so I'm not actually answering your question with that.
Well, no, once it's touched by anything, a human, it's no longer a virgin magnet. It has to be literally found in its origin.
But if you create can't you create a new magnet by taking?
Yeah,
isn't it ship of Theseus?
Like, for example, I can take a 1" by 1/8" thick neodymium disk magnet, and I can repolarize that. I can completely reverse the direction of the north and south pole on that if I want to. I can cancel out the poles and squeeze them to the center. I can make half of it. I can make like a ring of north on the inside, a ring of south on the outside, and repolarize the angle of axes, though it doesn't work as well. So yeah, you can completely repolarize, remagnetize, unmagnetize, and change the field position of any kind of permanent magnet. It's the easiest to do on neodymiums because they have a very low Curie temperature. It's a lot more difficult to do on ceramic magnets because they are incredibly rigid and they don't like to repolarize, but it is possible at 1,000 degrees. It just, you've got to get the stuff.
Is there male, female, and does it impact one side more than the other when you're talking about a virgin like magnet? Like, I don't know if that makes any sense. The Adelaide Scanlon breakdown, I've been just trying to understand what he's talking about, the essentialness of having a virgin magnet and a male. And once the female magnet is soiled, he keeps referring to, that cannot be brought back. And the closer they get together, the more chance they have of destroying each other, essentially. But it's the female that has to be pure, he keeps going to. So
it's an interesting way of looking at it. The way that I see magnets, and I can kind of describe this. If you just take a look at, you say you take a disc and imagine just you draw an arrow all the way around, the face of the disc that's moving, that points clockwise. So you're just using an arrow to say clockwise direction. If that was a clear disc and you flipped it upside down and you were looking at it from the opposite side now, the arrow will be pointing in the other direction. Now imagine that arrow represents the inside of the magnet, and it represents the trillions of little aligned electron valence spins that are giving it its magnetic field. All that arrow really means is that the direction of the electrons as they're orbiting around is in clockwise from the face that you're looking at, or counterclockwise from the opposite face. So if you're looking at the clockwise face, you're looking at the North Pole. If you're looking at the counterclockwise face, you're looking at the South Pole. But technically there is no north and south inside the magnet. There is no actual separation between a north and south pole. There's just one single spin direction that is shared by all of the electron valences. So it's just, I look at magnets more like a rotation and a spin direction instead of considering them to have a north and a south pole. And that's it, as far as atomically and molecularly, that's what's actually going on the inside. So it's just that we give names to which direction we're looking at it from.
So it's all personal then.
Yeah, the preference of north and south is really a preference of terminology, because there's just spin, and you can say I'm looking at the clockwise side or the counterclockwise side, which is technically far more accurate.
Okay.
It's a weird way to consider magnets, but when you understand how it is that they work, and you can use that same knowledge to reprogram them and do just about anything that you want with them, then it becomes a very useful thing to know.
Have you read A Good Book for Every Home and decoded it then? You're the only
I've
person
never actually
that
heard of it.
Oh my gosh, that's Edley Scanlon's coded book for how he made the Coral Castle, and you're probably the only person that could accurately decode it, because it's written like it's about a girl and a boy, but it's really coded because it's about magnetism. And he's talking about the Sweet 16 and virgin magnets. And yeah, dude, that's interesting. Someone tried to decode it, and I caught the video and realized it was about magnets and electricity and how he had done the Coral Castle. Anyway, I'll send you a copy sometime, and it's a quick read, or you can even find the PDF, but you could break that down probably better than anybody.
What was that sound? Was that just Jeremiah falling over from all the radioactive activity on the table?
It could have been me, or I heard.
Okay, he's still there. Never mind.
Sorry, it could have been me. It could have been like my heart, what? Sorry, I'm freaking out. Awesome.
I need a copy of that book as well. I've seen a couple people that have done a couple different portions of deciphering Ed's work, and it has to do with the magnetic geometry of how the field and current of magnetic force moves.
Interesting.
And I've seen some people add color into it, into like a three-dimensional system of it.
If you read it without knowing, it sounds very like perverted. It's all about not having sex, essentially. Sweet 16, and it's a birthday, and she's got to be a virgin, and it's about magnetism, and
exactly, yeah, and
it's interesting. It's mind-boggling.
It's very similar also to like Walter Russell's work and the philosophical, metaphysical side of their physics writing and understanding with it too. That it's like,
yeah, Jeremiah explains stuff so just in ways that it makes sense. So it would be great
to tie into what you were saying. There's another kind of allegorical piece of history about virgins being sold, and a virginal used to be like a piano or a keyboard that has never been used before. It's perfectly tuned from the manufacturer, that sort of thing. And so there was like, advertising going out that they were selling virgins at the churches in New England, and probably at different phases of time that was true in various ways. But
I've not heard that before. With that,
so he put out a call where Ford said he'd pay $5 a day for people who were strong and competent mechanically. And what it did, it meant that every family lost 3 of its most knowledgeable, strong, solid members, because they all went to Detroit looking for this mythical job for $5 a day that may or may not have existed, or even if it did, was it worth the journey, and what did they leave behind, and what happened to the family as a result of just $5? That was all it took, was someone putting out an advertisement that, hey, we're hiring $5 a day, and like 2/3 of the country's families like starved to death. Oops. And again, I don't think it's on purpose. We do things like this as a human species that I'm always amazed that we're still here. Sorry for the bleak sense of humor.
Oh, no problem. The same kind of thing happened.
I'm sorry.
Like during the gold rush, all these people came, flying into just about any time that there was a large, public made claim that, hey, there's gold here, and then it's going to be flooded with people that are trying to get their hands on that too. So it's that virgin land, and at that point for the gold rush, it was this virgin land that everybody wanted to get their hands on because it hadn't been, pillaged already of all of its elements. And where you find gold, you also find a lot of other useful things as well, unless you're doing it, in the river and you're panning. Where you find gold deposits, you also oftentimes find a variety of other precious metals. And so it's funny how the stuff gets pumped up from the earth like that, and it kind of ends up flowing in veins because it's far more liqueous than the surrounding material. And so It's
There's
darn
also
good
an
thing.
implication that if you do find sand and you're panning in it, and all you find is gold dust, and you're not finding other heavy metals and stuff, perhaps it was put there.
Well,
Because I
I've
think
never heard
Jeremiah's, the
it's
implication is
and
oh,
gold
go ahead.
back
What?
down. But the river will naturally wash out just about everything else except for the gold because it's so heavy it tends to stick around, and it gets clumped up with the black sand and everything else that's also super heavy that tends not to be dragged away by the water. What are we looking at here?
Vinny St. Vincent channel. So this is good old Roy, and some of his experiments with the Edleed Scallon
16 wheel,
flywheel
yes.
that he's
Oh,
rebuilt
the
and
yeah. We had a
deciphered
fun
and done
conversation.
testing with. And then
Talk to
he
him about
connects
it.
it to all
Sorry.
other sorts of experiments. Sorry, what was that, Jeremiah?
Oh, I talked to him on the phone. It was a pretty good conversation. He's definitely an interesting character.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
bet you, has he decoded the book? Because I think it's like written to Jeremiah to probably understand more than anybody. Or Bernie.
I may disagree
Or
with
Rife.
Scallan's idea of monopoles, and he sort of has this idea of magnetic monopoles flowing in almost a similar way that we consider electrons flowing. And he was obviously able to do something with his understanding. So if I can wrap my head around what it was that he was trying to say, and kind of just forgive the idea of his use of monopoles, then maybe I can get down to the bottom of what it was that he discovered.
If you're in the private chat, I did link the book. I think that's the full PDF in its origin. And yeah, I don't know if save it for later if you get time. It's a quick read probably for you, and let us know next time you come back because.
Yeah, I can't open it now because.
Right now, I'm just saying check it later, or otherwise I'll have Bernie. Someone will send it to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, Vinny's a cool guy.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just can't help it, but dude, stay away from the radioactive material on your table until you get some kind of suit around you, please. We want more Jeremiahs in the world.
Yes, this
I'm telling
is
you guys,
great
worry too
advice. But
So guys, I think it's like botulism though, radiation and botulism. Like if you're in, I think I'm unmuted. Yeah. If you find a bunker and there's a bunch of cans in it and you want to save it all for yourself, you just test one can and you bring out your quote unquote radiation detector and it goes beep 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 beep. Oh yeah, botulism. Sorry guys, no, you guys can't eat any of this. And
yeah, I can tell you this much: if you had a can that was radioactive, it would not have botulism. Yeah, if you've got that much radioactivity, you're not going to have bacteria breaking down the materials in the can and polluting it, which is what botulism is. Yeah.
and people will literally eat each other before they'll eat something. If a guy with a white lab coat like you, Jeremiah, says, "Oh no, definitely not. No, you can't eat this."
You're probably right about that. That's kind of crazy. Until they start looking at you with and licking their lips and they got their knife out, and that's the point where you basically GTFO.
Jeremiah, how
a
did they
measure of a surgeon is how quickly
Jeremiah.
they could perform an amputation. And so if you can do that to yourself and like give the wolf pack your arm instead of your whole body, maybe they'll like let you go. But you got to be able to stop the bleeding.
I'd rather give them the end
Again,
of a rail
morbid. Sorry to bring terrible vibes to the convo.
Oh no, you're.
Now
It is true though that was the measure of a surgeon.
The wolf pack helps.
Was how quickly you can amputate. Because in wartime, if someone's got a lead bullet and they're bleeding out, I don't know.
Well, and so like Walter Russell and Edleed Scallon, they used like the male or female sex gender as the terminology for north or south, or like opposite or attractive forces. A lot of symbology and like hidden meanings within their works and writings.
Oh yeah, so it's not like perverted, but if you read it without knowing that, you'd be like, "What? This is a scientist? This is, yeah." And then once you decode it, especially if you're like, I don't know, a technician of any sort, like Jeremiah, the technician. Yeah, you guys have it all probably figured out. There he is. But Jeremiah is doing the coil experiments too, where he was taking, he bought, I don't know, we didn't know what it was. It was like oregano or
Basil.
some element, basil from like your co-op or your Walmart, whatever. And he just had it on coils with water, and he generated a root structure from this material. And I didn't know if you're still running those experiments. I wanted to
Well,
see
actually, we planted them now, so they've been
Oh.
potted.
Can we take a look? Do you still have them under the pyramids?
He's put them in the ground.
Yeah,
he
it's
said.
not like we're really getting doing that much with them, but yeah, sure, why not?
It's pretty fascinating, Jeremiah. It's just an experiment in itself. So that was really awesome.
So just repropagating, I'm testing these compared to how they handled it without the pyramid, and seeing if there's a difference in the root thickness and whether or not the original roots will have trouble, or if they're going to actually pick up. They're actually quite a bit healthier than the comparable sample, which is here. This one was not growing underneath the pyramid. This one was growing without it, and it's just into the general zone. And the very ends of the roots, although it's very hard to see, they're kind of clearish, transparent. They're not that healthy.
No. What's the other one? Maybe the crops. They were growing crops in these pyramids too, eh?
So there's the potted basil. That
Nice. That's looking good.
Oh, they're all taken very, very nicely. Some of the green onions being planted. These are just like little 1-inch pieces of the end of a green onion. So we used the rest of it, used all the green part, and then you can see like right there where that white part is. That was all that was left of the green onion, and so now they've got roots, and now we're gonna just replant them and let them actually grow and propagate, and we can get probably multiple uses and cuts out of them.
Well, now that you have a set of my coils, can you actually take one set that's up underneath the pyramid and one set that's not, and just take them into another room that has a Faraday cage between them, run them on 528 hertz, and see which one grows better?
I guess. I mean, it depends on how long I run them for, because if that's the kit that I'm going to be sending back out, then
3 minutes a day. Oh yeah, I mean you can do whatever you want to with that kit. The Royal's going to be there tomorrow.
Oh, okay, yeah, tomorrow. Yeah, that's pretty soon. So yeah, what I'm interested to find out is the other one. I don't know if they're the exact same coils or if they're slightly different. But if they are the same ones, which I guess you could tell me, are they?
It's going to be the same 1.21 ratio on it.
Right. What they would allow me to do is I can just simply use the two thin wire coils at once, and I can find out how the amp handles that by comparison, which will actually be a very good test. So that I'm thinking I'll start with that, or I'll just replicate the geometry and wind it with another 22 gauge. So. Yeah, what I really want to see is how it's going to handle that and power.
I would just use the Royal and keep it at 25% where we have it marked, because it runs really well. And I just want to see like the energy consumption of the plants up underneath the pyramid versus not.
Well, I can run it. I guess I'll say I'll run it for a day and see. If
I would just do like 3 minutes a day.
Oh, 3 minutes a day. Okay, I see what you. I thought you meant
take
there continuously like the other one that I have there. I don't
take it to like a Faraday situation to where it's not affecting the plants in that room, and then just run it like 3 minutes a day, and do like in the other room do a pyramid and no pyramid, because I want to see which one grows better at that point.
Yeah, actually, I can certainly expose them for a few minutes a day. I think I need a slightly larger pyramid as well. One that can actually hold those coils, because right now this pyramid is just a little too small, and I can't use the pre-cut 10-inch by 9-inch panels that I'm currently cutting the pyramid shapes out of. They're just a little too small, so I'll probably just get some much larger sheet. And I still need to metallize the corners. I still do want to chop off the top and put an appropriately sized capstone, because I do believe that'll make a tremendous difference. If it's already going to naturally charge up that capstone, we know that plants grow towards the electric charge. Fantastic set of experiments have been done, and we haven't really talked much about this on this show, but there's been a fantastic and extensive set of experiments done to use charge and nothing else to control the growth direction of plants. And my favorite example.
This is something that I think that Bernie and I were talking about with Brittany and moving into in the future with like soils and plants and agriculture.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to be
giant
setting it up
soil.
within the next 2 to 3 weeks here. A whole series of different seed tests of like lettuce, spinach, and kale.
I kind of wonder if I can do a live stream and set it up here in the office with
Oh.
no volume
need-
because I have workers that come in and just grow a plant and just watch it live stream.
Yeah, that'd be
Ooh.
watching that girl. But
Yeah.
at turbo speed, that the town. That's I was trying to say Giant is the soil expert. So Andreas, you should really get Giant in here to talk to these guys if you can, because he is like he's really well versed in that stuff.
Yeah, we're going to put together like at least a monthly, if not eventually weekly, agriculture show just for doing all the different tests with agriculture and focused on horticulture and growing
Cool.
stuff and experimenting with
And
it.
we can get lights, people that are using different types of lighting, coiling, water.
Well, there's a
chemicals.
Japanese guy who's using a shield and he's blocking out certain light frequencies and he's only letting certain frequencies in. He's having amazing
Interesting.
results.
That's
It's kind of like a UV shade, but he's I forget the material he's using, but I could probably replicate it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And absolutely, David will
Find
have
my
you back
LRH
on the
stuff.
file.
Yeah, Brittany, I want to do a show on ancient soil
David.
samples.
David who? David's here? Did you say?
David M. in the chat.
From Schwimmer? David Schwigert? Sorry. Plasma bubble guy. I'll stop.
Oh,
You
No,
did it.
no. This is,
Schweiermeyer.
this is David M. Great guy.
David M., you're great too. I'm sorry. I'm muted.
I believe also in California, LA, if I'm not mistaken.
Wait, so do you mind if I ask really quick, guys, Jeremiah, what's your impression of the coils? Like totally harsh criticism.
Well, as we talked about, the copper mass for each is not balanced, and the idea of the half turn ratio is, I'm not necessarily against it, but when you're talking scalar resonance, and as we talked about, it's just one wire gauge change. You're just going to make actually the thicker coil one wire gauge thinner, and basically then you're a difference of 0.02% at that point. If the insulation, the enamel thickness is consistent between the two different gauges. So you obviously don't want to mix, well, I guess it's not really going to matter what your build is, but yeah, just looking at the charts, you're then going to be 0.02% instead of the like the 1.26 that it's at right now. And that, I think it's going to help it a lot. But the other thing is I would just quite frankly and flat out recommend way more turns on the thicker wire coil. And I would even recommend, going up to like a 3/4 factor, or either that or adding more turns to the other one. And the reason for that is low frequencies. Low frequencies are where the amp is really going to have the hardest time. And it's because the inductance of those coils is so incredibly low. There's just not that many turns, and the amp is going to have the hardest time at lower frequencies, where that tiny little bit of inductance is basically acting like a dead short.
Yeah, so we were talking about earlier, for people that don't know, Jeremiah and I were on the phone and was discussing like using a larger capacitor to where it doesn't overload the returning electricity coming through on the terminating impedance.
Right. And the basic premise was this. You've got an inductance that is extremely low, but still present. Any inductance can be balanced out with a certain value capacitance to set a frequency. And so assuming a basic capacitance decade box, which is just a short name of a box with a few different values of capacitors, that when added together, you can basically choose any digit from 1 to 10 in terms of your microfarads, nanofarads, whatever value you happen to need. In your case, it's going to be microfarads. Yeah. So just have a simple box that you can mix it, and you're going to put the right amount of capacitance across the coil for whatever frequency. This could theoretically be done with a 6-pole or a 6-stack rotary switch, which is just a component that you can simply buy and use that to switch the coil.
Bernie, you're muted. I don't know if you're trying to talk.
No, I know I'm muted at the moment. Thanks.
But yeah, it could be done fairly simply with a rotary switch, and you would just select 1 through 10 basically as the multiplier of whatever frequency you're going to be pumping in. So if it's 528 that you're going to put into it, you'd want something like a 5.2. So your first knob you go to a 5, and then the second knob you'd go to a 0.2. And then that it would be very easy to set. And then if you wanted to change your frequency, you just change those 2 dials, and then you'd have a capacitor arrangement where, yeah, you're going to be a quarter wave shifted, but at the same time, your amplifier is not having to source all that extra current through a dead shorted coil. You're going to instead be able to ramp the full amount of current in the sinusoidal waveform, and you'll cycle the power because you're actually pumping it back into a capacitor where it's resonating instead of treating the coil as a resistor. And what that'll do is it'll multiply the output of the magnetic flux significantly.
So for anybody that didn't understand exactly what that was, we're running energy back through it. We're creating energy out of energy. We're recycling energy. And this is future of Rife, because Jeremiah is such a freaking genius up on everything, dealing with electricity, that we're going to make it more efficient. We're going to make it better, and we're going to make it work even more so, because we was discussing like the Fibonacci sequence and how it works within nature and the human body as well, and even within the ether.
Yeah, and then there's also the multitude of different geometries that will all perform different functions, and that's where it gets really interesting. Now, I'm not the expert on that, but we'll have to see if we can set something up on a private call between the three of us. And like if anybody in the world knows about coils, he does. So, yeah. But ultimately, I can see what are obviously electrical engineering issues that even without studying the coil geometry in great depth, I can simply tell you from the electrical point of view what's going to happen as far as those systems go, and how to fix it. We're going to see if the amp likes it, if the amp is going to play nice, or if it's going to try to phase lock with it. But I'm thinking, all in all, even if I have to put a series coupled capacitor, which is a totally viable option, then I'll find out what that amp likes, because I'm not sure what its configuration is yet. I assume it was a Class A amplifier, but
that's a Class D.
It's a Class D, so yep. I do